Good evening and welcome. John, it's been a while since you've done that to us.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It was just so much fun, and it was just one of them things.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, who maybe have only watched us for, I don't know, 6 months or whatever, John used to be very habitual
Habitual.
of going, all right, we're live. And it was like, oh, nix the conversation we've been having for the past 5 minutes that suddenly is cut off because now we're live. So anyway, welcome to Monday night. It is Q&A. It is Q&A. And I'm not going to tell you what either of those letters stand for. You just kind of have to guess.
You have to figure it out.
Exactly.
See, I gotta get the little thing put in here. So where did I put that? I've got my segment break. There it is. Or maybe that isn't it. I'm not even sure. You know how it is
I
when
can't
you know
help you. I can't see your computer.
you know how it is when you haven't done these things for a while. There we go. You kind of forget, and okay. So yes, we are ready. We have some great questions tonight. It's one of those things that it's going to be inspiring. It's going to make it so that you're going to want to improve as a DJ at levels never improved to before. So, our first question, which we'd have to make sure we hit early, is if you were going to play one of the most successful songs for your dance floor, which song from sports would it be? No,
Oh,
yeah.
I
Oh,
thought you were going to talk about Bruno Mars's new song.
oh
That's where I
no,
thought
no,
you were going.
I just I didn't get there, so it's been one of those days. Okay, no, we have real questions because that one is a pretty good question. I gotta say, I mean, it was one of my better ones, but we'll go to some of these others that are more industry related. So we'll get our first question right here. Put a marker in. Okay, the first question tonight, guys, is when someone reaches out and says, "Hey, are you available on this date and what are your prices?" How do you respond to that? Say they text messaged you or emailed you or direct messaged you. How would you respond? That Dan, they send that to you. Go.
Great. I have to be the one to go first. I was hoping
Yes.
Cubby was going to drop some nuggets of wisdom
I
here.
know he's got
Um,
a process with this, so that's why you and I are going to answer first, and he's going to go and tell us how wrong we are.
No.
Probably. I've really had kind of a bad issue lately. Where people will do that, I'll respond and then I get nothing. And I try not to give it was some of those things where I'm like giving them a book of information and I'm like, okay, I'm never hearing from them again. So I've gotten to the point lately where my response back is just a confirmation of those details because what ends up happening is that I don't get necessarily in just that text. I get then filling out my form. So I'll just drop a quick, one or two sentences in. Hey, that sounds great. I love that venue, or, that venue is pretty cool. It has this great feature that I really like, something that says that I've obviously looked at the form. And then, hey, before we go any further, I just want to make sure these are the details that I'm seeing. Is that correct? Um, just something for them to basically say yes. And then I know that they've responded. I used to respond like with almost like a little mini paragraph, and sometimes I get responses and sometimes I wouldn't. And I wouldn't know if they had the wrong information or what. So this gives me just a quick way to do it without taking light years to respond. And then once I got that, okay, now they responded. Now we got it back and forth. And now I can go to the next step of asking some more questions about them.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and I think it's somewhat similar. Immediate response is basically where, if they don't have the date, obviously I want to know where, and if they have an idea, if they've gotten any of the initial times set, so that they can reply back, and it's going to be at Grandpa's barn, and yeah, we've got the ceremony set for 2 o'clock, and it gives me a little bit of an idea. But I want to have something coming back, and I was just actually looking at it earlier today, and my last 8 inquiries, and these are, again, I don't get as many inquiries as especially like what Cubbie does, but I think like 6 of the 8 booked. by basically confirming, and they were looking for numbers. And once I found the date, and if it's a place, or we've got the date, it's a place I'm okay with playing, and the times that look like they're going to be conducive, i.e., it's not playing until 2 a.m. I've been getting them pricing, and they haven't. I haven't had any like, oh, that's too expensive. The one of the 8 that I missed, I was busy, and I was probably didn't reply in time, is really what it was. And ironically, that person lives in my post office, and realized after the fact that, wait a second, that was you? Yeah. Oh man. And unfortunately, they went with someone who got back to them quicker and had a conversation quicker. My dropping up the ball, but that's that happens. So, Cubbie.
Right?
Oh, go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
No, Dan, please.
I was just going to say, I found that it's really a very delicate balance between holding on to that information too long and not long enough.
Yeah.
Because I obviously, if you give it to them right up front, yes, that's what they've asked, and I know there's some, like, I've lost one in the past because I started a conversation and tried to ask some questions, and then they were like, we decided to go somewhere else, and I said, might I ask, because we hadn't even gotten to pricing yet, and the response was, yeah, they gave us what we were looking for. You never gave us even a price. I was still trying to get details at that point because they were very vague on what they did give me. But it's that delicate balance, because in the same respect, if you go too long, it's too much. If you go too short, it's just like, okay, we got what we want, and now that's the only thing we're comparing. So I found that balance is really kind of key.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely agree. And that typically was the situation. I was actually surprised that it's like, wow, we've actually done a pretty good rate on those last number of things, way higher than I had expected, because usually we're batting about 50% of inquiries that come in. So it was neat to see, but it's also one of those things that it's a balancing act, and sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't.
Cubbie's going to give us the lowdown.
Yeah,
this is. I don't know where y'all. You're building this up really too much. So is the lead coming in through DJ Event Planner, through my website? Is it a personal email, or is it a text?
It'd be a text message or some kind of a direct message, whether it's a direct email.
So not through my website.
No, not through website, not through DJ Event Planner. So they have not seen anything. They just heard that you're a DJ, and they got a way to get in touch with you.
Awesome. I'm going to go with text. My initial response back would be, "Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. We are available for your date." I would check the date though. To give you a little bit more details. Where's your venue? How'd you hear about us? And then wait for them to get back with me. And then once they get that back, it's like, sometimes a phone call, a 10-minute phone call works so much better, because we do so much more than just press play. And if I can get them on the phone, the closing ratio is a whole lot easier. A lot of times people, like Dan said, it is a fine line. All they're doing is kicking tires and looking for price. And you do know there are DJs out there that do a lot less than we do, but charge higher, or they do a lot less than us and charge a lot less than us, right? And you don't know what they're looking for. So when I get them on the phone, or when I get them, I'm like, what are you looking for in a DJ? What is your expectations of your DJ? Have you thought about that? And then when they start telling me, well, when somebody keep them on the dance floor, do you care how well they sound on the microphone? Oh yeah, that's really important. So then we start bringing in some of those other factors. And then I said, well, tell me how you guys met. So my whole thing is like relationship selling. I like to get to know them a little bit better. And then once I get to know them a little better, my sales pitch is a lot easier to take,
Sure.
With a little bit of comedy. But it is something you really got to get back on them fast, because they are shopping. And we're talking about leads coming in at a lesser time now. I don't know. It's like they're. I still got leads coming in for March of this year, which of course were booked, or May. So I don't know what the urgency is anymore. Like I said, post-COVID, a lot of people have talked about this. Leads were coming in like right and left, and they were booking so quickly because they were like worried about it. Now they're coming in 6 months out, 8 months out, 10 months out. And then you got your super planners that I'm getting a lot of 26 too. So it all depends. There's no right or wrong. This is the way you should do it. This is your flow chart. It is just making sure that you have their data available and make them comfortable about their sale. Obviously, they reached out to you without not through your website, so they really want that personal connection. So make that personal connection with them.
Yeah, I
I
like
find it
like that. Go ahead.
I find it interesting, and I wonder if there's some regional aspect though to the phone call piece. Because I've heard Alan Berg talk about this, where you would never walk up to somebody else, like a person you're attracted to in a bar, and go, "Can I get your number?" without having a conversation. Like you wouldn't, or if you and not actually, have that work for you, right? So sometimes I feel, he uses that analogy of like if we go up and we are immediately trying to get to that call, it makes it difficult to do that. So I do wonder if there's some regional aspect to that it kind of pushes. Plus, like you said a bunch of times before, Cubby, is everybody knows you, right? So they do have some prior knowledge of you often, I think, which kind of helps. Um, I again, that's why I try to get a couple back and forths before I then go for, hey, let's do a phone call, let's do a Zoom, let's do something that kind of, I try and do those rather. I do offer in person to as another option, but I really prefer the phone and Zoom because it's an easier buy-in for them.
Yeah. And like you said, the phone call is like you said at a bar. I get that, but the way that I respond to that is I can answer all your questions in a 5-minute phone call, but versus going back for 2 hours, but back and forth. I said one answer may have another question, and I can just turn around and answer that. And it's sometimes it just makes them feel easier. And I'm like, hey, thanks for giving me 5 minutes. And I try to keep it at 5 to 10 minutes. I try not to keep on the phone a lot unless we're really vibing. And then of course the conversation I'll let them lead the conversation.
Sure.
But the way I try to explain it is that I can tell you a lot more in a 5-minute conversation than I can in a 2-hour text back and forth or an email, and that kind of resonates with them. I think sometimes if they're dying to hear about your service, if they're just flat out price shopping, you'll never get them on the phone.
Very possible, yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you're completely out of the picture, because there may be some people
No.
who are out of that just have no interest in talking to you on the phone because they know that you monopolize the conversation, you'll talk for hours, and you'll tell those off-color jokes, but they like you as a DJ because you played that song.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Off the Huey Lewis album.
Yeah, which one? Hello, it's a good album. Guys, we're gonna put a break in here, or put a marker here for the next one, because we're gonna go a direction that we were just talking, and I think this would be a really good direction. Follow me, okay, Joe. So as we're talking about that, and I think that one of the things I've seen is that some of my couples, when they are in that shopping mood, and Cubbie, you were kind of mentioned it a little bit this way. When they're in a shopping mood, they want the information as to a point very quickly, and they want to be able to make a decision in some cases very, very quickly. Where I felt in some of the past years, there have been times where they would make a decision in a month or 2 months. And as on my DJ event planner that I have, which is a sponsor of our show tonight, djeventplanner.com, they would check, I'm going to make a decision within a month or 2 months or whatever, or 6 months. And then I think there's one within a week. And I think I have more people. It's not even the default first one, because I switched it up, and that most are picking that they want to make that decision. So are you finding that couples are wanting to make a quicker decision? Are they wanting to are they responding to an easier buying experience? What are you coming up with that? Or how difficult are they, will they stomach before they walk away? What do you think, Cubbie?
Well, with being a multi-op, I will let them know how many DJs we have available and who's available. It'll also be basis of the time of year. So if it's like a September, October wedding and I've got one DJ left, I'll be transparent. Like I wouldn't sleep on it. It is a very busy time of the year in booking DJs. I'm not one to put a full court press on you. Take as much time as you need to make the quality decision, but I can't guarantee we're always going to be available.
But are they wanting to book? Do you think they're wanting to book quicker when they're calling you today, or are they wanting to sit on it and think about it as much as they maybe did in the past?
That's situational as well. If they've heard about you, been to a wedding, I believe that they're ready to book right away. If they've got your name from the venue, photographer, or friend or relative, they may sit on it for a week while they call other people just to see where your pricing compares with them, with what you offer to what they currently offer. And I do share, and I always tell them, if nothing less, at the end of our conversation, you will be a much educated buyer. Whether you go with Select Entertainment or whether you don't go with Select Entertainment, you will have that knowledge to make a great decision on who will be your DJ. And I will talk to them about emceeing and music and stream music and how the order of events and things of that nature. And then what we do, the little things that we do that like photographers don't even do and planners don't even do. And that just kind of hears them in. And then, like I said, if they've seen us work, it usually is a lay down. But if it's somebody that's just a referral from a venue, heard about us from the wedding wire the knot or a friend or relative, then they may have to take a week to get on it. And I'm like totally fine. Take your time.
Dan, what have you experienced? Are people looking for an easier buying experience, quicker decision making?
Yeah, I feel like they're definitely looking for ease and something that's not going to make them feel awkward. And there's been a lot of talk where our couples lately have avoided, moments during the reception because it makes them feel awkward. And so if our buying experience is doing that, it's a turnoff. It's an immediate turnoff. And so I think what's either causing some of our couples to move really fast is one of two things. Either they have no idea what they're doing, and so just the sheer thought of having to agonize over this decision is agonizing for them to the point that they just want to get through it. And then that's one thing that they can check off their list. Or they've kind of gotten that indication from a lot of people that there's a lot of things that they need to decide on. And the sooner they get some of these things decided, the sooner that they can move on to whatever might be the next thing that they need to focus on. And so some of our couples, I think, are more in that they want an easy buying experience. They want to make it a comfortable buying experience, and they want to feel good about it when it's all said and done. They don't want to have to agonize, but in the same respect, I think some are more willing to make a quicker decision and live with it than to make a drawn out decision, having it sit over their head until they get to the end, especially if they don't have the experience going in. Right? Exactly like Cubbie said. Like if they've seen you or seen a bunch of DJs, they have somewhat of an idea potentially of some different styles. But if they're clueless, if they've not really been to anything, it's kind of square one. It's like, well, I really don't know what I don't know, so we're going to go with this. And again, what makes them feel better?
Really quick, Jim Cerrone recently posted in a Facebook group that Randy Bartlett started called Sales Events for Pros. And Zola recently came out with did you see it today, Dan, or
Yeah,
recently?
that's kind of where some of this idea came from. Yeah.
Do you want me to keep going or not?
Go for it. No, go for it. You got it.
And the reason I pulled it up was we asked couples before booking your vendors, how did you vet or screen them? 68% of them checked their social media accounts. 67% of them looked through available photos of previous weddings. 62% read reviews of them online. 53% digitally corresponded / emailed with them. 52% of them had a phone call with them, and 24% have met them in person. So they're checking your socials, they're looking at your previous photos, they're reading your reviews, and then they'll pick up the phone and possibly call. There's a 50-50 chance you jump on the phone, or a 50-50 chance off of those, how they vetted you, whether they're going to email you or not.
I think that's actually really an interesting thing to look at from the standpoint is when they're in the hiring mode. Okay, so we need to find a DJ. Okay, so where are we gonna look and we're okay. So we found a couple of potential options, and let's investigate. We've been looking at couches, for the house. I would look and it's like, okay, it fits this, that, and I'd like to be done with it immediately. And I think we have couples out there that are in that. It's like, okay, we don't have 25 hours to be interviewing and talking to a lot of DJs. Let's look at what we can look at in the afternoon or on a Saturday night after we get, and then we can really narrow down our decision and say, yeah, we can be good with that. Let's make the decision and hopefully we'll be happy with it. Especially if we don't know who this person, this is. That booking window, I think
Plus they have the ability to research.
Yeah.
Right. They have the ability to check us out. They have the ability to stalk us in a lot of different ways, whether it's our post, whether it's somebody posting about us. Right. Like that's there. So that research aspect where they used to get the information from us, they're now getting the information about us. And so I think that's also kind of leads to some of that speed. They don't need to take forever because prior to them ever reaching out to you, they've spent whatever time they might need to spend to get some of that information.
And one last thing I'd like to share from this Zola is that when it came to spending money on your vendors, what has made you the investment feel the most worth it to you? 61% of the clients said clear pricing that simplifies budgeting. 55 said quick communication and responsive from vendors. So that's why you got to be clear in your pricing and quick in communicating, because that is
Important.
what they're looking for.
Definitely important in this day and age. All right, guys, let's jump to our next question.
Oh shit.
Okay, cut.
I hope I can hold my tongue.
We're back. We're back. And what? Yeah, Cubbie, that did come through, by the way. Social media etiquette. Let's talk a little bit about some people are wondering, as we go through, what are some things that you should and shouldn't be doing, or really it's the kind of things you probably shouldn't be doing in this day and age. We're going to fall back to almost the last question when we were talking about they're researching us and they're looking around and they're digging in. And sometimes it's not just looking at, the main DJ page. They're digging deeper than that in many cases. If somebody came and said, hey, Cubbie, what would you recommend, for me to have as a guideline when it comes to me making posts on my social media, even my personal page, to not cause or not to give me issues, what would you say?
Wow, you did have to start with me.
I know I did.
I would always err on the side of caution. I would always post on things that your mother or your grandmother would not be ashamed of you posting. I would not be abrasive. I would keep a level of love versus hate. Don't swing to one side or left politically, where no matter where you stand or religiously, and keep everything fun, safe, and happy, because there's no reason to put that kind of stuff out in the world. And I think it just really, really affects a lot of people. I mean, there may be, and I'm totally fine with free speech, but there are consequences for free speech. Say what you want to. And that's fine. You have every right to do so. But when it comes back to bite you in the butt, don't get mad.
Dan, I want you to focus on a slightly different area, because you're coming from the East Coast, and when I'm on the East Coast, when I come home, I drop more F-bombs than I can shake a stick at, because of you folks on the East Coast are just that way. But let's talk about the use of kind of include the with profanity. Is that acceptable on our social media and not offensive?
So I'm gonna throw out a Ben Stowe answer. It depends. It really depends. And here is why. So I think about some of our colleagues within our industry, and I think about how they treat their social medias and how they treat the personalities that they've created. And kind of to the fact that there's a lot of different DJs for a lot of different people, right? I think, there's somebody that's going to match that style, and is going to relate to that and is going to want that because that person is real and that person talks the way that I talk and that person acts the way that I talk. Or, even to Cubby's point of like not swinging too far one way or another politically, that person believes the way that I believe, right? So they feel a better connection to them in some of that. I think that works when you're in a large area. When you're in a smaller area where there's not as much, where one week you may have a wedding that is full of very right wing conservatives, and the next week have a wedding that is very left wing liberals, and you have to put to that line in the middle. I think it's very different. I think it becomes a very, very different situation. Personally, I don't. Like, I try and keep any profanity that might come out of my mouth limited to when I hit my thumb with a hammer. Right. So like this type of stuff that's going to be on that it's not going to make its way to the social media. Because I don't personally like the way that it looks when I see it from others.
Sure.
So if I don't like the way that it looks, And if you do it, that's fine. That's up to you. But I don't like the way that it looks. And so I know there's other people that are out there. I feel that it just does not give the viewpoint that it should. But again, I've also seen some other people that maybe are not extreme with how they post, but occasionally the things will kind of come out and some things are maybe controversial, but it's done in a very educated, thought-provoking way. And I'll use Mike Walter for that example. He's very meticulous in the way that he shares his viewpoints, that they can be controversial, but because it's not just pro this, hate this, and anything, it's just a thought-provoking. I think it works. So if you are going to do it that way, that would be a key that I would see that would help.
Can I add what Dan
Yeah,
said?
go ahead, Cubbie.
I used to work at a bar, host trivia at a bar, where the owner was it was a husband and wife owner, and the wife would always jump on social media, and she would complain about this, complain about that, kids in the bar running around, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, out of 2,000 of her social media friends, maybe realistically, maybe 125 had ever met her in person. So now she has this persona of being a Karen. You know what I'm saying? But nobody knew she's a really, really nice person. But the way that she would write all these posts and all these, and she'd post on social media, people were forming opinions of her without ever having to meet her. And so she really was a very super nice woman. But she was putting out there that she was a big bad Karen. And because of all of her posts were always negative and this, and I'm like, man, you need to stop her,
Mm-hmm.
because this is affecting how people are perceiving her. And so if you continue out there and realistically, John, how many people have you ever met face to face of all your friends on your Facebook? Or Dan? Not a lot, right? I mean,
Yep.
honestly, realistically,
Majority, but that's because I kind of tightened the
You
reins
tighten it
on
up.
it.
Yeah, yeah, but
But
I'm probably at
yeah,
10%. If I'm at 10%, I would be surprised.
right. So people are forming their opinion on you based on what you post. And if you were snarky all the time, or if you were combative all the time, or just agreed with everybody and I'm the right, you're wrong, people are taking this perception of you, and then they meet you at a show and like, damn, that John's a really nice guy. I was totally, you know what I'm saying? But they might not like you or whatever because of what you posted. So you really got to be cautious of what you're putting out there because people are perceiving you maybe a way that you're not, but the way that you're writing things really is affecting their perception of you.
Definitely. Definitely. I've got one DJ friend of mine here in the upper Midwest who is in a very rural area. And he has decided to basically go all great guns on being very political. He rebranded his DJ company in a very political way, using something that came right from a speech from a political person. So he's really trying to go after a certain demographic of the political spectrum in a rural area. The irony is that I would classify him, of knowing him for years, I would put him in the middle to the other side of the spectrum. But everything he's posting and everything he's doing and the naming of his company and what he's aiming for is a completely different than who he is or what he is. So it's interesting. It can be intentionally misleading. They were trying to aim for a different market type of a situation, or it could be unintentionally damaging, depending on what you're doing. All right, guys, let's jump to our next question here. Okay, guys. Somebody was wondering about creating a timeline for a wedding, like when you're putting things together and you're wanting to sit down and actually put those things together. What do you do? Do you have something that you've gotten a timeline I'll put together and you take it to them? Dan, it's that part of your planning process. How do you handle establishing a timeline for the day?
so after when I'm meeting with my couples, after I get through all of the all right, we're doing this feature, we're doing that feature, we've got this song for that, we've got, we're having, Uncle Bob saying the blessing, whatever. I've got all that laid down. Then the next thing that I do is I take that information and I say, okay, now we need to figure out where those pieces are going to go. We know what pieces we're playing with. Let's talk about the order. What, and in some of my circumstances, they have no idea and they've not been guided by the venue at all. I love those opportunities.
Yep.
The other times it's, when we talked with the venue, this is really what they suggested. And then my hands are tied for some of the elements. So, and even if they don't, I kind of really give the flexibility to my couples to say, okay, when you first come in, after we've done our introductions, or done the grand entrance, do you want to go right into your first dance, or do you want to save that for after dinner? Here's a pro if we do it beforehand. Here's a pro if we do it after. And then we have that conversation. Okay, let's put it here. And so once I have that all set up, I don't, I mean, it's called a timeline, but the only times I ever put on my actual itinerary are the start time, when I'm expecting them in the room, when dinner's supposed to be, and the end of the night, because nothing else on there is staying on schedule. No matter how much I try. Like, it'll be in the order, but the time is not going to stay there. So, and that's what I tell them. I'm like, when I get something from the venue, or they share me something from the venue, I'm like, hey, I just want you to be aware that time is not going to work. And they go, what do you mean? Just trust me. I've done enough weddings, and you don't need to be worrying about the time. I guarantee you we're going to have lots of time for all the things that you want to do. And if we don't, we'll work through that. But having the cake at 7:10 and it's 7:20, we haven't cut it yet because we were doing something else. You don't need to worry about that. Let's worry about the flow.
Mm-hmm. Cubbie?
I have nothing to add.
Yeah.
Other than that, the day is really, really fluid. And I tell it's really for me, not the venue. It's the photographer is going to tell you that your toast is going to happen at 7:15. And I share with my couple, your time is fluid. Things out of our control can either make it go faster or slower. So just know that this is the order in which we're going to do things, that they've approved, that we've talked about prior in that consultation in the meeting. But it's going to be a fluid timeline. You could have a dress malfunction and you could take 30 minutes trying to fix that bustle. So we're just doing those things, but just put your seatbelt on, buckle on, and just realize that I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I'll take great care of you all night long. Because other than that, like Dan said, everything's fluid.
Yeah, and that's the exact same way. As it's in order, but it's going to be fluid, and things are going to flow, and nothing's going to fall exactly where it is. But as long as everything feels comfortable to the guests as you move from thing to thing, and that's a big thing that I talk about, is that we're not going to be maybe to the minute, but I want that flow to feel comfortable. And then we're successful. All right, guys, let's go to our next question. Here we go. Next question, guys. What is included in your basic package? And this is something that has been talked about both in the wedding area and outside of the wedding area. But we're kind of aiming things more of the kind of that wedding area. If there was something called a basic package in your world, what would be included with that? Or do you not have something that would be considered a basic package? And I think, Cubbie, you can start this one.
Yeah, thanks. I basically have two packages. I have a package for a couple that's getting married at a church and coming to the reception hall. And then I have a package that's all inclusive that includes a certain number of hours, and ceremony sound and all that, because it's that basic, simple pricing that we talked about earlier that Zola talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to confuse them with like, you're going to need this, this, and this, and break it down to this, and this is what you're going to pay for that. I don't want to do that to them. I want to make it very simple for them. So I have the two packages. One, reception only, 5 hours, what you need because you're getting married at a church, or you need ceremony sound and and the hours for your reception. And this is what those two costs are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And those are basically what my packages are.
Sure. Dan.
So it's funny because I will say this is what I do currently, and I will kind of mention where I'm moving, hopefully. So currently my most basic package would just be what I call my reception only package. And it includes my sound system, it includes dance floor lighting of some sort, all the microphones, all the planners, all the stuff that goes with the normal pieces, for up to 4 hours. Right. So that's the reception only piece. And that's one basic version, if you will. And then I have a second basic, if you will, that's the ceremony and reception. which just tacks on the ceremony services to the reception. Still includes all the same reception stuff, and then includes what I need to cover for this ceremony. Um, and then I was doing add-ons for for all the extra stuff. I really have felt kind of to watching the surveys coming in and hearing people like Cubbie talk and about this idea of a basically an all inclusive package, or all inclusive with the exception of maybe a photo booth. And I've kind of been trying to play around with those numbers of, okay, what's going to work to my best of my interest, where I'm going to get the money that I feel is right for all that all inclusive, and I'm going to not cheat myself if they take it all, but also not completely rip off the couple who says, well, I really just need what would have been your basic package. And trying to find that middle line. I'm working on that, but that basic package, that's what included. I really think that all inclusive, if you can do it, is the way to start to lean for your couples.
So we have 4 different packages that we have listed on the sheet that we can email out. And each of those, it's kind of a checklist that, okay, all these checked items is the basic package, and there's a price with that. Then these are the next step, and there's a price with it. Da, da, da. And so people can use the grid, and they can see what's included with each one. If they want to move things around, they can, as far as to take something from way over here and move it over here. That's certainly possible, and they can, in essence, upsell themselves with that. What we have basically in our basic package is the sound, a little bit of lighting, and kind of a minimum of hours, which for many weddings that we're doing now that end at 10 o'clock at night, which has become more common with us, that fits right into that base package. How I came up with the numbers on that basically is that taking a look at the 3 packages, the profit margin, or what I want to make off a show, is worked into the base one. And the only real difference is that there's more time involved with the other shows, or more people involved with the other shows. But I didn't want to be cutting the potential for making the money I need to make off a show by selling this bottom package, because that usually became the problem, is that, oh, we can sell this cheap package, but I'm leaving a lot of money for my time and my personal labor on the table, and I didn't like that. So what I make for myself is pretty much the same across the board. What the difference is between is that we're adding a little bit more time for setup, and then I'm adding an assistant with this one, adding a little bit more time for setup, and now I'm adding two additional people for that package, and it's been working pretty well so far. As far as I haven't had, in those people, of those 6 recent bookings, I think all of them have been. I think each one has got a booking, and I think maybe they might be 2 of each for all. I think it's very possible. So that's what
I think
we've done.
the key to that, John, is it's very easily laid out. This is what it is. This is where you want it. And this is how you're going to get there. So there's not really a question for your couples of where to go. And I think, like, why I've kind of pulled back and started to go the other direction was I didn't really feel like I had 3 distinct packages.
Yeah.
Because I had uplighting, I had a photo booth. That was like it with it, and then I had an audio guest book, but it wasn't really something I could say, okay, this is a package. And so it became like the initial base, and then all these potential add-ons. And that's where I think it gets confusing for some of our couples, because it's like, well, now I'm getting nickeled and dimed,
Mm-hmm.
or even though that's not the case, or I'm trying to put together my own package, and this other person over here has a package. So I think there are some pros and cons, but the key is having it very concisely laid out for them.
Definitely helps. All right, guys, let's jump to our next question. All right, our next question is dealing with lighting, and specifically some of the name brand lights. We've talked on different shows a lot about the importance of going in and investing in name brand gear, whether it's audio side of it or in the lighting side of it. But recently, a lot of questions have been coming up about this, is because there have been some of the newer companies out there. There's obviously some lighting companies that have been around for many years. there's some newer companies out there, and some of the reports are that I've been hearing is that people are wondering. It's like, okay, so we're getting almost better quality stuff from some of these newer companies, or they've even been getting some things from direct from China type of purchases that they have been comparing to some of the name brand companies, and they've been like, this is just as good as type of a situation. And I'm wondering if we're getting to a point now where the name brand just isn't as required, needed, isn't as important to be purchasing name brand as it once was. I guess kind of what are your guys' thoughts when it comes to that?
I'll let Dan start on this one.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. So I almost feel like this was my question, right? Like, because I didn't have this question, but it was dealing with a situation that I've had recently. Um, I would be leery of any company that's a brand new startup, right? I think there's too many potential bugs that need to be worked out, and I'm not talking about the ones that basically buy somebody else's thing and then slaps their sticker on it and sells it and says, "There you go." But rather that is kind of starting from scratch, and so I would be a little cautious of that just to make sure that they've kind of checked all the boxes that they need to check, so that if it's a battery operated type of thing, you plug it in and it doesn't suddenly catch fire in your basement. Like, those are the types of things you need to worry about. But with that being said, I do agree in that some aspect that some of these companies that have been around for a little bit have checked the boxes, right? Yes, they might be direct from China, but they've recognized that if they're going to be around and they're going to sell, that they need to make some quality, and as a result, they're putting out some quality items. Will they last as long as some of the brand names? Maybe. Some people have had great success. Some people are saying it got me 2 years and I replace it, but then my brand name one over here quit a month after my warranty was up. So I wasn't any further ahead, right? Like, so there's pros and cons in both of those aspects. To the question of is it worth it? I've been having a hard time with that. I've been having a hard time with that. But I will say, I had an issue with one of my brand names. I reached out to my local dealer, or not my local dealer, but to Ben. He put me in touch with the repair shop. I was able to send it back. They paid for the shipping. They're fixing it and they're shipping it back. I don't know if I would get all of those features in that level of care from some of the startups that are out there.
Sure.
I'm not going to say all, because some of them have come on board and said, "Dale, we're going to offer this warranty. We're going to take care of you." So there are some that are doing those things, but not all of them are. So, there's technology, there's research, there's customer service. But I would say if those things are really starting to lack, which in some cases with some of our brand names it is, it might be time to look another direction, just because it's like, man, if I'm dropping all this money and I'm not getting anything out of it, why did I just drop all this money?
I was chatting with one of the guys who had seen that post, and we were chatting on Facebook there, and he said he's starting to look at lighting specifically. It doesn't matter who it's from. He's looking at it as a 1-year investment. Basically, that he's buying the lighting. If he can get 1 year out of it, he considers that he's going to have to allocate the funds in one, to pay for it within that calendar year. Otherwise, he's just not jumping into it. So it's like, okay, so that means that, the more expensive, he goes, yeah, I wouldn't even bother with more expensive lights, because yes, they might last longer, but I probably will want to change up my show. For one thing, he wants to change up his look on a regular basis. So there's that. And he said the second thing is that as soon as it's out of warranty, these things are probably going to die. And if it's a 90-day warranty, if it's a 1-year warranty, he said the days of, and I couldn't even tell you what the warranty are as far as length of it, but he said the days of having the 3 and 5 year warranties are like completely gone. So it's like, okay, so now are we entering a time of disposable lights? You buy them, use them, and throw them.
Well, and I would add this, that I almost feel like some of the companies are kind of pushing us towards that almost 1 or 2 year type of mentality, because what happens, they come out with a new model. What's that new model? Basically the same thing, but instead of 4 lights, 4 diodes, they're going to put 5 diodes. Oh, but we're not going to sell the 4 diodes anymore. So it's like, okay, so if I do have one that goes down, I now have to replace it by one that doesn't look the same, right? Or that doesn't have the same type of response, right? They all might all have the hex lighting, but they're different enough that I can't just interchange them. You know what? If I paid $100 a light, okay. If I paid 500 a light, I'd be a little ticked at that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because now that becomes a problem, and I feel like I said that some of the companies are really pushing us to change over a little bit more. And I get it, right? They have to stay current because they want to entice people to come in. But then when they discontinue what you have, it it gets frustrating because then, like I said, if there's an issue or you want to add to what you have, right? You only bought so many because that's what you had budgeted. And the next year you're going to add on. Oh, they came out with a new model, so the old one doesn't work. But you don't have enough to buy a complete set of the whole new model. So now it's like, what do you do? Yeah, Kelby, what do you think? I
Well,
got off my
coming
soapbox for a second.
you're fine. Coming from the lighting industry, I used to work for a company called Bliss Lights. I don't know if y'all remember them. And we went over to China and we visited a couple plants when we were looking to mass produce some of our lights. And I am here to tell you that all the lights that are made over here and sold by major manufacturers are all being duplicated over there and shipped over. It's just at whatever price that you can get them. They throw a different label on the box and ship it out. It's literally just a printing cost. So if you could buy them cheaper, like the gentleman said, I would do it. Customer service has gone out the window. I'm dealing with this another major manufacturer, similar to what Dan was dealing, where I bought 8 lights, and no, I bought 16 lights, and currently 4 of them are working. So it's useless. So like I said, you are buying them for a year. Change it out. I know we talk about buy one, cry once, buy once, cry once. We talk about that, but I think those in major purchases like speakers and microphones and like controllers. I don't, lighting is just going to be ever changing. It's going to come from plug-in and so many different, like John and like Dan talked about the different diodes and remote control or battery operated things are going to be trending and they're always going to be trending. And there's going to be a lot of movement in the lighting industry. So I think if you can buy from China, you didn't hear it from me, but by all means, if you think you can get a really good deal at it, and but you're not going to get the customer service locally anymore. I hate to say that, unless you buy from Ben Stowe, at NLFX, he will go to bat for you with a manufacturer, especially if you buy from him. Don't buy it, not buy it from him, and then ask you to go to bat for you.
Yeah, that's that
No,
plan.
no.
Not going
That's
to
not-
happen. But the thing is, if you go out on your own, and a lot of people do, and I've seen Ben work, and I try to buy all my stuff through Ben. But sometimes if it's a light that's going to be knocked around a lot, it's not, I don't care who manufactures it or what name they put on it. It's just not going to last.
Yeah, some just are inherently going to be something that's got a short lifespan. Whereas if you go buy the $800 moving head type of thing from Ben, you're expecting that to last 2 or 3 years. And,
Yes.
and I had one of those fixtures, and it was in the second year, and it was still under warranty. I mean, it was probably 18 months in, and something happened, and it wasn't functioning. Ben had it picked up and sent off, and back it came. So that's there. I think the dealer part is probably almost more important nowadays than the other. So, there was something I was going to say about beyond that. Oh, I completely forgot. There's going to be, we're going to do one quick question here, our last one of the night here, guys. Okay, guys, last one. This is a quickie. We've done it before. Wedding cancellation policy. People are getting ready for this season, and they're going to be getting into this, and they're wanting to get an idea of what others are using for a cancellation policy. I'll start with this one. My policy basically is that if it's within a month, it's to be paid in full. I want to say I've got my retainer down before that. If they cancel outside of a month, 2 months out, the chances of me getting paid in full are going to be very, very slim. But the retainer is a non-refundable. And even if it's within a month, it's very tough for me to collect that anyway. It's only happened in all my time probably twice that I've been able to actually get any sort of a payment, and they've canceled close to the gig. It hasn't happened that often, so thankfully that has been a thing. But of the 10 or so, probably in my 30 years career that have been canceled, I've gotten paid maybe twice. because they canceled it. A couple of times it was due to a death, and I basically sent the money back, and I didn't even keep the retainer. The other times it was just we got the retainer, and the DJ didn't get paid that night because there was no show. So, Dan, quick, and then Cubbie, and we'll wrap up.
60 days out is when my final balance is due. 60 days out is when the cancellation policy, anything underneath that, they owe the full amount. Anything over that, it's the retainer only. That's the way I set it up to try and make it as simple as possible so that that due date is also the cancellation date. So that way it takes care of both at the same time.
Excellent. Cubbie.
I'm the asshole. 6 months. 6 months. If you cancel anytime within the 6 months, your balance is due. I have collected it. I've had to take a couple of people to court. I still collected. I've done situations where, since I'm a multi-op, and because more than likely we're not going to rebook, right?
Yep.
I'll say, look, just pay me what my DJ was going to make. I don't have to make any much money as a company, but just let me be able to pay my DJ, because now they're sitting at home. They had planned this on a schedule. They were sitting at home and they're not making any money, and that's not fair to them. And it's all situational too. Like I said, if we're dealing with somebody with cancer, something happens, I get it, totally fine. But the most recent one that happened, and it happened just last month, was they just didn't have enough money, and so they were going to go to the courthouse and get married, but yet they signed all these contracts a year and a half ago, and we've held their date. We booked out the entire date, and I explained to them, look, we've held your date for this long, for a year and a half. Pass up on other opportunities. So, to be fair to you, you just pay me what my DJ would make. So, because they're going to be sitting at home there, and if there's a chance that I rebook it, I'll pay you back. There's no harm, no foul. I'll give you all the money back. But I want to at least make sure that my people are taken care of.
For sure. All right, gentlemen, that'll wrap that up. Tomorrow night, let's see. Jim Cerrone was tonight. The Mark Beecher is going to be on with me tomorrow night.
Oh.
Mark's got a kind of we're going to be talking wedding sales. He has a kind of a neat process in which what he uses for communicating and evaluating and making sure that he's got the right client for what he does and does well. And it has worked very, very well for him. And we're going to dig into that and find out a little bit more about Mark Beecher tomorrow night. And then we're going to have the Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe show, which will be at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Eastern to Mark Beecher. Then we're going to be talking about some of the picks from NAMM. Kyle will be back, and he went and he took some pictures that haven't been posted yet, and he's going to talk about some things. Ben's going to talk about some things. I'm hoping he's going to talk about the difference between 2- and 3-way speakers. I mean, that's got to be a discuss. Maybe that'll be next week's topic, but anyway. So that
Trending. It's hot.
Yeah, it is. It is a trending topic. But anyway, so that'll be tomorrow night. Wednesday night we'll have our music show and the chat show. You can check those out at 8 and 9 o'clock. Well, actually, no, I think Casey's on Wednesday night this week, so it'll be at 8 o'clock, 7 and 8 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock Eastern will be Casey coming to us. So, all right, Chill Room's next. DJNTV.com/chill. Dan, take us home.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Hopefully we answered your question. And if not, send it to John and we'll get to it at some point. Have a great night. We'll see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.